Hello, welcome back to my channel. We're at the All-Star break. We have the Olympics going on. Team USA is out there trying to win gold. And so in the meantime, we're in a WNBA drought. And so during this time, I wanted to go through where each team is at this halfway point in the season and give my take on one thing, one main thought and storyline I have for each of the teams in the WNBA. So let's do it. Let's start with the Chicago Sky. Coming into the season, it was well known that this was a rebuilding season for them. They won the championship a few years ago, but none of that championship core is there. You know, trading Kalia Copper was sort of that last true thing. And then, of course, they drafted Angel Reese. They drafted Camila Cardoso. So it was just the start of a new era for them. And they had veterans around them. So the question was not, are we going to win a championship? But, you know, this is a young team, and maybe we can get to the playoffs. I think those playoff hopes are dashed now. I don't see them going into the second half of the season making the playoffs. I think trading Marina Mabrey right before the All-Star break was really sort of the nail in that coffin. They just don't have enough shooting around them. Kennedy is exciting to watch. I think Coach Witherspoon really has had a connection with her, but and Angel's developing. Camilla's starting to come into her own after starting the season with injuries, but I just don't think they have enough anymore to sort of end the season strong and make it to the playoffs. Next, the Phoenix Mercury. My takeaway for the Mercury is that, unfortunately, the rest of Brittany Griner's prime is going to be wasted. Obviously, she had the 2 years in Russia, and that was unfortunate. She was coming right off of a finals appearance, so that really was the height of her skill, athleticism. And, I think coming back into the season, the Mercury did try. Obviously, they had the issue with the coach, so they got a completely new coach in Nate Tibbetts, and I think he's done a pretty good job. But the team is just not super cohesive. Part of that is that Griner herself has been in and out with injuries, but the team is super guard heavy. They've struggled in a lot of their matchups. Some nights they look great, some nights they don't, and I just don't think they have enough time to figure it out. Meanwhile, Diana Taurasi is getting older. And then their future just isn't super bright because they don't have many assets. So they traded their third overall pick in this past draft to get Copper, and she's been amazing. She's been, what you would expect out of a former Finals MVP. But again, the team they're not operating at a championship level, and they only have one first-round pick in the next 3 drafts. So it's going to be really hard for them to inject some sort of talent that would take them over teams like the Storm, the Aces, the Lynx. So, unfortunate to see it sort of in that way, but I think we're looking at what the next 3 or 4 years of, Phoenix Mercury basketball is going to look like. For the Atlanta Dream, my takeaway is very simple. Fire Tanisha Wright. This team is just horrible. They are the bottom of the barrel of the WNBA. They are not exciting to watch, which is really a shame because I think they have one of the most fun young players in Ryan Howard, and it's just boring. It's a boring offense. Tanisha Wright looks like she doesn't know what she's doing. It's just, this team needs a revamp. And the Atlanta Dream actually did try to do a rebrand a few years ago, and they're trying to really invest in that franchise and have, better leadership. And they just got to get rid of that coach. They need a new coach, and they need to start really putting some effort into building around Ryan Howard because right now it's easily the worst team to watch in the league. My takeaway for the Dallas Wings is that the Arike era is over and they are entering the Paige Becker sweepstakes. So I think Arike is a talented, uber talented player. Caitlin Clark was quoted in the All-Star game as saying she's the best one-on-one player, one of the best one-on-one players in the league. I think that's absolutely indisputable. However, Arike is one of those people who can kind of get carried away in a team context, and, she can score a lot and she can have just these amazing games, but it doesn't translate to team wins all the time. And so that's something hard to deal with. Dallas has been trying to balance it. They've paired her with different bigs. Obviously, Satu Sabali is the current one. Satu has her own health problems that are, have her in and out of the lineup. Of course, she's not playing this year. But it's just like you would think with Enrique's talent that they would be able to be better than they are, even with just her, even with one of the co-stars out. And consistently, it's just that they're fighting for a playoff spot, And I think ownership is going to start to I think they're at the end of their rope on that one. And they're saying, what, we want to have a star who actually can lift everybody up. And not that we'll be fighting to be in the playoffs. We know we'll be in the playoffs. Now it's about contending because the Dallas Wings have never truly been contenders anytime that Enrique's been there. And so with their record being what it is, I think they're going to be in the Paige Becker sweepstakes. I think their record's going to be poor enough that they'll be in the lottery and they may be able to get that number 1 draft pick, which we know is going to be used on Paige Beckers by whatever team. So I think Enrique might be getting traded, and Paige may be that new point guard if they get the number 1 pick. I've talked about the Liberty before on this channel. I made a video about Breanna Stewart and her re-signing deal earlier this year before the season. But, with the Liberty, I think my opinion hasn't really changed. I didn't think that they were going to win the finals last year, and of course they didn't. And I think they're going to fall short this year again, although it looks a little different. There are different reasons why. So Breanna Stewart is not playing at her level. She's not having, her kind of year. And of course, if you look at the stats, it's still amazing, right? Because she's just that good. But for her, it's a down year. Most years, it's like between her and A'ja Wilson, and they're just neck and neck. And it's like, depending on which one you watch, that's your favorite at that moment. But this year, Asia's just, head and shoulders above in the MVP race. It's really not competitive. And so that's one element. And then Courtney Vandersloot just looks past her prime. You just see it. It's just, there are very few highlight plays from her that you see when you watch a game. And so, she went from being at times the best point guard in the game to now just having, not so much impact on the game. And you could argue that Sabrina Ionescu is actually kind of rising to the fore as their best, pure point guard, even though she had been shooting guard for about the past couple years. So I just don't think the Liberty have the juice, and I think it looks a little different than last year in terms of why they'll not win the finals, but I still do think they will not win the finals, even if they make it there. So I'm pretty confident I'm going to be right about the Liberty, but one team I was definitely wrong on is the Minnesota Lynx. So earlier in the season, I did a video on the Minnesota Lynx and Seattle Storm because they played a game. It was actually the Storm's home opener. And so during that game, the Lynx beat the Storm. It was, a disappointing game for Storm fans. And the Lynx were impressive. But I remember saying in that video that I didn't think Napheesa Collier was good enough to be the best player on a championship team. And I really have to eat my words there because she's just been absolutely incredible this season. I think that she's second in running to A'ja Wilson for MVP. Asia's definitely going to win it, but I think if you start talking about the people who would be next up, Napheesa has to be at the top of that list. And so she really has proved me wrong on that, and it's just been fun to see for this Minnesota Lynx team, and even more impressive that she's doing it after a year off of maternity leave. Let's move on to the Connecticut Sun. Certainly one of the more exciting teams to watch. They had a bunch of really high stakes, it felt like high stakes, matchups with the Indiana Fever earlier in the season. So I think that brought a lot of attention to them from a lot of new WNBA fans for sure. Very tough team, but I think the story is going to be the same as it's been. Always the bridesmaid, never the bride. I don't see them winning the finals. I think the problem this time is that they just won't have enough offense. I think they rely so much on grinding out these games, playing tough defense, and making the right play, but I don't think that they're explosive enough on offense. I'm a Patriots fan in the NFL, and it reminds me of what the Patriots have tried to do post-Brady. They would have these teams, and Belichick's idea was just that we'll be really tough on defense. We're just going to be really good at our fundamentals, and we're going to grind out these games and beat a lot of teams. And you will beat a lot of teams that way, but you aren't going to consistently beat the best teams that way. And that's been the Connecticut Sun's problem for years and years. And so even now that they have a new coach, they've swapped out some stars, I still don't think that they have quite enough offense, and I don't think they're quite good enough to win the finals. They might make it there, but I don't think they're good enough to win. Let's move on to the Washington Mystics. For the Mystics, my takeaway is a sad one, and it is, will Shakira Austin ever be healthy? Shakira Austin is one of my favorite young players. I think she's just so fun and exciting to watch. She plays with such energy. She's a beast on defense. Her offensive game is, still pretty immature, but she's, like when she has those sparks and those flashes, you really see it. And I just think she's wonderful. But it's a lot of injuries for her. And so, this season seemed maybe hopeful that she would be able to, really grow her game and mature with Elena Delle Donne being gone. She would get more minutes, but, she got injured so quickly in the season. And so she's out this entire season, it seems like. And it's just hard to kind of watch that. And it would have been cool to see her grow alongside Aaliyah Edwards. So at this point, it's like, is she going to be just injury prone? Will we ever see her just grow in her game and dominate? And I think the answer is no. All right, now let's talk the WNBA's darling of the season, the Indiana Fever. There's so much you could say about this team. The expectations were all over the place. This is a team that has been pretty much in purgatory ever since Tamika Catchings left. You had, how is Aaliyah Boston going to work with Caitlin Clark? You had all the attention from new fans, all these different games and narratives. So there's really a lot that can be said. I certainly think that Caitlin is Rookie of the Year. That to me is no competition, and that's no shade to anyone. But actually, my real takeaway, I think, is a bit of a hot take. But there's been a lot of criticism around Christy Sides. Anytime a game is on, you'll see people commenting on Twitter about her. And anytime you look at post-game interviews in the comments, people are asking for her to be fired. My hot take is that Christy Sides is definitely going to be back. And I think the main reason is that as the season has gone on, you've seen their offense start to coalesce. You see them start to have an identity. You see Aaliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark starting to grow and create chemistry and work on their pick and rolls and their pick and pops. All of that's building. And so you see a vision on offense. And now, would they be that great with any coach? You could argue that. But I don't think there's anything there to say that Christy Sides can't build a good offense with those players. And the real pairing is that she built a great defense last year. They were an excellent defense last year. Their offense just wasn't as good. And so I think if I'm leadership, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, hey, well, she's built a great defense before, and we have pretty good defensive personnel. And now she's building what looks like it could be a really lethal offense. Let's give her another year or so to see if she can put those things together in one season. And so I don't think this is the last we're seeing of Christy Sides, despite how much people on the internet may want her gone. Only a few teams left. Let's talk about the Seattle Storm. So I am a Seattle Storm fan, so I'm a little biased here, but I've been very happy with their season. And, I think they're my dark horse pick to win the championship. I think wherever this season ends, though, kudos to the GM. I just want to say that I think our organization has done a really great job. It was with Sue Bird leaving, Stewie leaving, those are two gargantuan holes to fill, and thinking that you could get back into being thought of as a contender even for a lot of teams in that situation would feel like a dream. And so the fact that midway through the season we have Skylar Diggins really getting back into his form, getting back into shape and starting to look great. You have the development of Jordan Horston. You have Ezzie McGregor continuing to blossom into stardom, and Nneka Ogwumike has just been absolutely amazing on the team, plug and play. All of these different players, Jewel Lloyd is being a bit more consistent. I think this team really could go all the way, and if not, I think they'll make things really fun in the playoffs, and that's a testament to great team building and great player development. Stay on the West Coast and talk about the LA Sparks. My takeaway for the LA Sparks is that they knocked this draft out of the park. And, obviously no one wants to openly talk about tanking, and obviously no one wanted Cam Brink to tear her ACL. But they are in the running to get Paige Beckers, and that would just be unbelievable, Obviously, you hope that Cam Brink comes back just as good as she was, and nowadays with, modern technology and surgery, it's completely believable that she'll come back from that ACL tear and be just as great as she was, especially within about 9 months. So you're talking Cam Brink. It's provided opportunity for Rakia Jackson to play more minutes, and she's shown her potential there. And then if you have Paige running point, oh my God, that would be an incredible team. So I think the Sparks have a really, really bright future. And last but not least, certainly not least, the reigning champion Las Vegas Aces. For the Aces, I see them going, all the way to the finals again. I don't know that they will win. My determining factor on that is going to be Chelsea Gray and Kelsey Plum. those two have been up and down this season. Obviously, Chelsea Gray dealt with an injury to start, and that knocked her out of the, first series of games. And since she's come back, it's just been kind of getting back into rhythm. Kelsey Plum sometimes has just been incredible, and then other times it feels like, she's not really playing within the game. So I think it's really those two players. How well they play during this playoffs will determine how far the Aces go, because it is not a question that the Aces have the best player in the league. And it's really not close at all this year. Asia has leveled up even more. And so they have the best player, but do they have the best team throughout the entire finals run? And so we'll see in a few months. So those are my mid-season thoughts on all the WNBA teams. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree? Do you have some takes that I didn't mention, some things that you disagree on? Please start a discussion in the comments. Looking forward to seeing it. Until then, and until we get more WNBA basketball, talk to you later.